Hi, and welcome to Drawing with Steffi. Today we are going to do how to draw a griffin. Should be lots of fun. It's a pretty popular fantasy critter. And as usual, if you want to be updated on what I'm doing, I've got a Tumblr, a Twitter, and DeviantArt, or you can just Google me and look for Cybercat or Lady Cybercat. Let's get started. Again, I'm using Paint Tool Side today because it's fairly easy for me to use and has some nifty tools in it. It's got a nice swivel option, which makes sketching pretty fun. Right, what we're going to do today is the griffin, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so it's easier for us to all see. And I'm going to start with a circle. Now, a griffin traditionally has an eagle's head and a lion's body, but because it's a fantasy critter, it can be pretty much any sort of bird and any sort of cat body. Haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but again, I like to start out by drawing various shapes to help build up the body. And I'm going to kind of just draw a standard pose here, nothing too dynamic. And I'm just using shapes to build up the shape. And if you're not too sure about how the anatomy should go for a particular critter, there's always lots of reference out there. DeviantArt is great for finding reference photos. When I do a griffin, I like to use the front paws to look more like a bird's. Kind of a combination of a bird's front feet or back legs, I guess you could say. But you know, it could be more lion-esque if you wanted it to be. I think those are a little bit tall, but I'll fix that later. And I could turn it into a hippogriff, which is like a griffin and a horse. And then it could be like really tall, but we're just gonna go with it. I'll squish it down using the squish tool, which I think we're gonna have to do because it's just really too tall. So we're gonna squish that down some. It's another good reason to use digital, because sometimes it makes it easier to edit stuff. Make that a little less, make it a little shorter. There we go. And we're going to put in the tail. And I'll add in the wings. Let's see. Let's make them kind of spread out. But we're kind of just sketching it out at this moment, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get an idea of where we want everything to be. There we go. And I'm going to make the head a little bit more square, because bird heads are kind of square. They're not as round. There we go. Make those legs a little thicker. Bring the stomach down a little bit more. Lions kind of have a waddle. They don't look like greyhounds. There we go. So it's pretty messy, but that's okay when you first start sketching something out. I'm not going to try to make this look quite as clean as I do in my normal tutorials, because I want to show people how I sketch when I'm just doing it for myself, so they don't feel so bad that it doesn't look as clean when I'm doing the other tutorials. It's like, why doesn't that quite look right? Alright, let's add in a bit of a beak. I'll put a little squiggle in there and make them look a little bit more fierce. And I like to give them a bit of a ruff on the side. And they usually seem to have kind of tufted ears. Give them an eye here. Alright, and that's pretty sketchy. That's okay. So what we're going to do is turn down the opacity. Something else you can do when you're sketching to help make it look right is to flip it over. That's another good reason to use a digital program, because that makes it easier. You could also just do that by, if you're using like paper, real paper, you can use a light box. Make this a little lighter. There we go. And I'm going to switch colors to make it a little bit more easy to see what I'm doing. And I want him to look kind of serious, so we're going to give him a bit of a brow here. And I'm just lightly sketching, kind of doing the outlines, but not really, because I'll do some more details later. And I'm giving him more of an eagle eye than a lion face. Why? Just because. You know, when it's a griffin, you can make it look however you really want. I'm going to give him his nose here. And a little bit of a scowl. There we go. And a fairly pronounced chin there. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because we're still in the sketching phase. I usually do a couple of sketches and refine it a little bit more and a little bit more every time I do it. You just have to be careful that you don't lose the quality of the sketch, so it doesn't look too stiff. You can lose the spontaneity sometimes if you go over it too many times. There we go. A little bit of a kind of tigery roof here. When you do griffins, you really could technically do any sort of cat. I've seen people use, you know, house cats or leopards. I've drawn one as a tiger once. There's really just no end of the possibilities. There we go. Give him a little bit more of a brow ridge there. Bring that up. It's a little off, but that's okay. There we go. This is only the starting sketch, so we can do some more fun. I think I'm going to add a little bit more tassel to his ears, kind of like a lynx. There we go. That looks fun. And zoom out some. I'm going to start working on the lion body. Again, he's got shoulder blades here. And we want to work on his legs and arms here. And that doesn't look quite right, so I'm going to erase that and try again. Now I've done some study of lion bodies, so this might be a good point where you could look at a real animal's leg before sketching your own. I'm going to have it mostly like a lion's body, but give him kind of bird-like feet here. There we go. Give him nice long feet there. Some nice long claws or talons, since he's kind of birdy. I'm going to make the fur kind of stop about where his wrists are. And show off where it's more bird-like. There we go. I want to make sure they don't get too long though. And a little bit of a dew claw there. And then we're going to come down here and put in his belly. Like I said, lions and tigers kind of have a waddle right there. And I'm going to erase this afterwards when I put in the wing, but I just want to have the reference line there for where his back should be, so I have a little bit better understanding of how things should go. Let's lower that a little bit. I'm going to sketch in his back legs here. And I'm going to give him pretty big lion-like feet here. Now you could, if you wanted to, make his back legs kind of birdy as well. Since it's a fantasy creature, you can make it pretty much look however you want. Just draw it however you want to as you go along. And I'm not going to put claws on his back feet because they're going to be like a cat's, so they're not out right now. I'm going to give him his legs some scales. And put in some of the little knuckles there. And now I'm going to add his tail, give him a little bit of fluff. And I like to put a nice big fluff on the end of the tail. There we go. All the way up to the back. Alright, there we go. And now I'm going to make another layer. Or if you're using just a piece of paper, you can just erase the line, but I'm going to just use the other layer because it makes it easier. And I'm going to draw in the wings. And I like to draw in the muscle and the bone parts first. And I'm going to swivel this around a little bit so it's a little bit easier for me to draw. That's why I like Sci. But I believe Photoshop CS has that ability now too. But I don't have that program, unfortunately, so I just get to use Sci. Alright, now we're going to add in some of the feathers. That's something else you can decide how you want the style to look. So where the feathers should be. And add in the back wing here. That one's going to be a little bit in shadow, so I'm not going to draw all the feathers in there. Alright, we're getting close to done. Let's see. I'm going to make my under sketch disappear. I'm going to erase the line between the wings and the shoulders here. And then I'm going to merge all that together. I think his head may have gotten a little bit big, so I'm going to use my lasso. And I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. Lift it up a little bit more. Sometimes when you make the head a little bit too big, it makes it look really toony. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the whole thing over again. There we go. And again, I'm going to reduce the opacity. And I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to go back to a dark blue for my sketching here. And this is when I really start getting the details in. I'm going to zoom in pretty close. But I'm not going to ink it, so I'm not going to work on my line weight here at all. I just want to get the details in there really good. And it's a little bit difficult sometimes because my recording equipment makes my my cursor jump. It's a little difficult sometimes to get things perfect when I'm trying to record. So I don't do it as often as I'd like. And put in a little bit of detail there. Let's see. I'm going to the top of the head and a little bit of this wrinkles there. So I don't like that. Let's put that up there like that. Gotta fix this bridge, this eyebrow, or eyebrow, I guess you can call it, a little bit. We'll switch back to the pen. There, that way you can see his eye a little bit better. You want it to have a little bit of brow coming around, but you know, just enough that it doesn't look like the eyes are on either side of the face completely. They should be a little bit kind of in the middle. Not quite as good as people eyes, but not completely on the sides, like like a shark or something. Most predatory birds and animals have their eyes both in the front rather than the side. Makes it easier for them to judge distances. And I don't like the way that line's going, so I'm going to fix that. There we go. Have that come around like that a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, we're going to fix his grimace there. This is not a happy Griffin. He's not very friendly. And we're going to make his chin a little bit more pronounced there. And I think I'm going to make his crest a little bit more pronounced. Whoops. Go back to my ink pen here. You know, give him a kind of a tigery or a lynx-like ruff here. Just because I can. Give him a little bit more of a unique look to him. There we go. A lot of people draw the throats and heads and necks feathered. I like to give them furred. I think that makes them look nifty. But you know, it's however you really want to draw it. This is just an idea for y'all to bounce off from. Make his ear a little bit bigger. Give him some fluff on the top of his head. You could like give him a big crest like a cockatoo. I'm not going to this time. You can have all sorts of fun with fantasy critters. There you go. And I'm going to have his beak colored, so I'm going to make a little note there. Some falcons and stuff like that have the tips of their beaks are darker colored, so I'm just going to kind of sketch that out so that's darker. You don't have to, but however you want. Alright, there we go. It's pretty nice. Kind of looks like I did this with a ballpoint pen, doesn't it? Alright. Now we're going to draw more of his feathers or fur along his neck. Nice powerful neck. And we're going to go down here. Add a little bit more ruff to his chest. And give a little bit of indication of some of the muscles. Make his legs a little bit bigger. Sometimes it's good to pan out fairly far so you can see how everything is looking. If you draw up close too often, you don't zoom out, things can get a little skewed looking. I think his leg got a little wonky. I'm going to redraw it a little bit. There we go. You know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, redrawing something if you think it's not quite right. That's part of the fun. And give him nice long claws here, or talons. Zoom out a little bit more, see if I still like that. Yeah, that looks okay. And I'm just going to have to redraw this part here. There we go. And I like to make sure that the middle toe is kind of the longest. I'm going to kind of give him a little thumb there. I like my griffins to be really smart. They have little hands instead of just feet. And then we're going to draw in some of the scaling effect. Add in his claws there. And a little bit of the knuckles to the finger. There we go. Do some more scaling. I like to kind of make big panels up at the front and then kind of thinner scales towards the back. And I'm going to bring his stomach out here and some of the fluff. There we go. Not quite perfect, but that's alright. And now we're going to do his back legs. And because I made his front legs a little bit longer, I'm going to have to make his back legs a little bit longer too, so he's not so stumpy. But fortunately, that's fairly easy to fix. A little bit of fluff back there on his back legs. And don't forget the kind of the wrist back there. And get the toes. Nice big fat toes. Draw the little claw legs in there. And there we go. Get his other feet in there. Most animals don't actually have a dew claw on the back paws, but I think it looks good, so I'm going to draw it that way. Alright, draw his shoulder blade in there. And then some of the fluff along the tail. I think his tail's gotten a little short, so I'm going to make it a little bit longer. There we go. And give him a nice big fluffy tail end. There we go. And now I'm going to add a little bit more detail to his wings. Make them a little bit bigger around here. Just a little bit more muscle mass. There we go. And then we're going to scroll this around so we can reach the other side. That's why I really like this program. It's more like using a piece of paper where you can move the paper around and so you can get into those little crannies so your arm doesn't feel awkward when it's drawing. I'm going to try to figure out how I want the feathers to go a little bit more. And you just build up the detail as you go along. And there's a lot of overlapping in feathers, so I try to do that when I'm sketching out my feathers. And if you don't like it, you can always just redraw it. I like to kind of curve them inward. Alright, and we're going to do the kind of secondary feathers here. And bring that kind of around here. And then the primary feathers. And you could do like a ton of detail on the feathers if you want to. I'll do a little bit of detail. There we go. Put the quill, and you could do some little bit of the feather tufts. I like to color the end of my Griffen feathers, the primaries, give them a little bit of a falcon tip. There's just all sorts of nifty things you can do. Put a little bit of shadow right there. And there we go. Let's turn that around. I'm going to hide my underwork. And there you go. That is how you draw a Griffen. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a message here on YouTube or visit me on DeviantArt. And you can also email me at cybercatgraphics@yahoo.com. Have a great day and see you next time.